Why should we care about the end times if they won't happen for 2,000 years?
You shouldn't. I'm talking to the camera.
What?
Some standing here will not taste death until you see me coming on a cloud with angels.
It's almost like he's speaking directly to me.
All these things will happen to this generation.
To us, Jesus?
No, I'm talking to the megachurch pastors 2,000 years from now. Don't worry about this.
Okay.
Hello guys, David Vos here again. Beautiful day, really hot today. Still haven't got those monsoon rains and I'm still waiting, but probably will any minute. I'm wondering if they're not kind of pointing their X-ray machine in the wrong direction, or maybe they're gonna inadvertently cause a drought around here, trying to flood some other place out nearby. I don't know, but I think the monsoons will be here. I'm hoping, because I got to water the garden every day, hauling water, and like last year I didn't have to. After July it started raining. July, August, September it rains, and you don't really have to water the garden. So, but everything's wonderful. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I saw this little, I don't know if it's a short on YouTube or wherever it is, and I thought it was funny, and immediately I feel and I see how this is going to sweep the world. This is the next, well, it's already here. It's the Great Deception. It's like, I don't know, it's bigger than the flat earth or anything. It's the biggest conspiracy that has ever hit the world. Because when you put it that way and mock and make fun of the Bible and Jesus and his words in this particular way, somebody's found something like this angle where, and I think this video might be presenting their view the best. Like, you could do all kinds of biblical studies and post all the scriptures and pontificate for hours, do 1,000 videos, and people aren't going to watch it. Nobody's even watching my video. I did that video yesterday. I think it's gotten 400 hits. Another really good video that is just so full about your soulmate and stuff, the last one I did about the sacrament, such important information, and nobody wants to see that. They're upset with me, probably because I'm talking bad about Trump or something. But it really wouldn't matter anyway, because I'm being shadow banned so badly. But friends, this is literally crazy. You know, part of the fault here is Protestants and Jehovah's Witnesses and Adventists. You know, since 1844, they've been preaching the world's coming to an end, and it wasn't. And they just kept preaching these little verses about this generation will not pass, and all of this. And he's coming with the clouds of heaven, and all of these expressions that they never understood themselves. And with a Bible that's been mistranslated. But why would they be doing this now? Is it curious? Because it's also now that you see the disclosure. Aliens are coming now, right? And the government's admitting it. But it's a lie. And then you see that the whole thing since Roswell's been setting us up for the lie. They've been setting us up for all the lies for, well, since Plato and Plato's Republic. I mean, if it wasn't a huge conspiracy, then why wouldn't everybody know in every country why they have a Capitol building that looks like a little dome? Why wouldn't everybody know why they're judges wearing black robes and a white collar, cloaking the truth, hiding it all from you? Why wouldn't everybody know why when you walk into a courthouse or a Masonic temple that there's black and white checkers pattern on the floor? You know what that means? It means that whoever made the black and white checkered floor in your courthouse is the same people that we call Masons. Masons are the ones cloaking everything with the black robe, which is white underneath the truth. They're cloaking it, hiding it from you. And the black and white checker tile down the hall at the courthouse is put there on purpose in every courthouse. Sometimes some of these modern ones will have brown and white or red and white, but it's always two colors because it represents good and evil. It's all based on the Bible or the Old Testament, the Old Covenant of Yahweh, which Yahweh says, I am the deity of vengeance. I am the judge. I am the avenger. My name is jealous. And I create good and evil. And this is the deity of this world that the New Testament talks about. The God of this world who's coming in his wrath. So, everything's a lie. And they're telling you that. They have to tell you that. But really, since, I don't know, the last couple of 100 years, it's gotten very, very meticulous with their in-depth deception. Because with the creation of the judge system, the bar association, we've got black robes in every country. And they all believe that they're separate countries. And yet they're all going by the rule of the law, which is based in London. And they all think they're following different religions. And yet they all have big cathedrals and stained glass windows. They all have a fertility symbol. The steeple represents the male sex organ. When I was a Jehovah's Witness, they used to tell us that, and no one else knew that, but we were told that. But we were told that not because they wanted to teach us the truth. Hey, look at there. We want to tell you the truth. That's a male sex organ. You see, it is true. But they didn't explain to us the in-depth reason why the ancient temples had a male and a female sex organ and what these fertility rites were. Jehovah's Witnesses started it, but Protestants are doing it now. And they're talking about, Easter, look, it's about bunnies and rabbits and multiplication of eggs. It's got to be fertility, and it's about Ishtar, and Easter is the pagan Sunday worship. Oh, man. But nobody knew. But it's easy to mock that when people literally have no idea. They read the Old Testament and the Sabbath is on Saturday. They see the New Testament and there doesn't appear to be any law saying we've got to change the law. It's all written in such a very obscure way that people could come out and say, oh, the New Testament's wrong and we got to go back to the Old Testament. Why? Well, because the New Testament's different than the Old. So evidently we got to go back to the Old. But what if the New Testament's never supposed to be the same as the Old? What if Jesus meant it when he said your deity, your father is the devil, a liar and a murderer? Has anybody ever wondered why Jesus taught all the different complete opposite views of the Old Testament? Like turn the other cheek and no, don't stone that woman for adultery. And he hung around with tax collectors and prostitutes and wine bibbers, forgave everyone, and said that it was not so from the beginning. Moses was wrong about this divorce thing, and if Moses was wrong about one part of the law, you can throw out the whole thing. And in fact, the Apostle Paul does. He says all things are lawful and we are under no law. But we've gone over this so many times. I'm not going to go over all this today again. Don't you worry. But I'm trying to make a point here that the way the Bible's written, you can get the wrong impression because of mesmerism, because of what people drill into your minds. And so for so long, people have been saying that Jesus said that this generation will by no means pass away until all things be fulfilled. And because they never told anybody that word generation is actually the word race, or someone generated from their mother, which is a child generated from their mother, or a race generated from their ancestors. And you see how it should be understood there when it's used in another place where Jesus said, "You're a generation of vipers." What does he mean? You're a 70 years of vipers? No, he's saying your race, your people, this generation of people that came from their ancestors, in this day and age, you were spawned from your ancestors. So this spawn is a spawn of vipers. Or this generation, this race of people, or a spawn of vipers. And so when you understand that, and then you look at it clearly, you see now what he means by this race or this spawn will not pass away until everything is fulfilled. And then you look at that group of people over there in Palestine today getting ready to sacrifice a red heifer, which is the greatest blasphemy that's ever been perpetrated on mankind. And we've got all these Christians standing up and clapping. Ted Cruz is saying, "Oh, we've got to obey this secular government," right? Netanyahu? What? They're going to... Do you think they're Christians? They've denied Jesus. And you Christians are going to deny Jesus with them? Jesus didn't say, "Hey, you Jews are the great guys. We got to do what the Jews say." Jesus said, "Follow me." And when they said, "Jesus, why don't you keep the Sabbath? Why don't you bow down to our deity?" He said, "No, my Father's above, your Father's beneath. My Father's love, your Father's hate. What are you doing? Don't follow them. Hypocrites. Wicked race of individuals. A wicked group of people. A spawn of the devil." And nobody understands this. And where it sometimes is written, "He's coming soon" or "quickly," that word should be translated "suddenly." That's why he's saying be watching and waiting, because it will happen so suddenly you won't know that it's already occurred. You'll get lulled to sleep because it'll keep going on and on. If you really look at the verses of the Bible, there's nowhere in there that says, "Hey, the end of the world's coming any minute." Never says that. In fact, Peter says, "Hey, he's not slow respecting his promise. It's going to take a long time. 1,000 years is a day, and a day is 1,000 years to the Lord." He's patient with you. And Paul's like, "It will not come. If you get a letter from us saying it's already here, don't believe it, because it will not come until the man of sin be revealed." And the Bible uses this term, "at the end of the ages." And so people today don't even know what an age is. And you say, "Yeah, but I don't understand. Why would Jesus come along 2,000 years ago and talk about things that are going to happen 2,000 years later?" Well, maybe because it's a book designed to be there for all generations. And that in every generation that the prophets spoke, they were trying to tell you that it is a short time that we live on this earth. And they started this, the prophets lived 1000 BC, 2000 BC. And even back then they were saying, it will happen suddenly. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel, Ezekiel, all talking about the time of the end, the time of the end. Well, Daniel was, like 500 BC. And he was talking about the time of the end. Oh, Daniel, go thy way until the time of the end. When's the time of the end? Well, it must be soon. Why is this angel talking to Daniel if it ain't even going to come in Daniel's time? Right? Because Daniel was a prophet. He wrote it down for posterity. And the apostles were prophets. The coming of Jesus had to come at that particular time because it was the end of a particular age when Judaism was going to be destroyed until they would come back up out of the bottomless pit. This is why it says, up out of the bottomless pit. Here's Babylon, the beast. What is the beast? It's Yahweh's government. Hosea chapter 13, read it. The leopard, the lion, and the bear, the beast, the wild beast, he calls it. A leopard, a lion, and a bear. And Yahweh says, I'm that. And I'm going to try to kill you. I'm going to ravish you. Okay, the mark of the beast is the law written on your hand or your forehead. All of this is in the Bible. And so we've shown that the term Babylon is a reference to Jerusalem because all the prophets and the blood of the prophets will be upon Babylon, as it says in Revelation 18. And Jesus said, all the prophets and the blood of the prophets will all of it, all the blood, all the martyrs, that this Jerusalem will be responsible, the killer of the prophets. He says, I've sent unto you many prophets. You killed them all. Jerusalem. But Revelation 18 says it's Babylon. So it's Jerusalem that went into the bottomless pit and is coming out in the latter days. And there it is, the big miracle. And all the world shall wonder after the beast, Israel. And they'll worship the beast. And that's what they're doing right now. And so now when you see that, you get an understanding of why Jesus said this race, this spawn, will not go away. It's going to remain until everything be fulfilled. Now, is it just some arbitrary, it could be billions of years when everything will be fulfilled? Well, it started off Isaiah talking about these things, the day of the Lord cometh, way back 600 BC, Daniel, son of man, is telling these prophets as if they're going to see it in their day, right? But no, they never did. And Jesus came along and the apostles, which were prophets, and they said the same thing. It's coming, but they never said it's for your day. They said in a day far away, in the latter day, in the latter day. They always said that. And what does it mean? Well, we wouldn't know because we don't have it translated. We've never told anything correctly. But it says very clearly at the end of the age. Or the ages. It's plural in many cases. Sometimes it has the expression of the age of ages or the ages of the ages, because there is a certain number of ages. 12 houses in astrology, and there are 12 hours in a day. And it's an intricate system that we talk about here all the time, and I'm not going to go into all of this here, but it's astrological time. And the ages are set appointed times. And it's called the times of the end, the latter days. It's never been said anywhere in the Bible that when the prophets were speaking to these individuals, that somehow or another the end of the world was coming in any of their generations. It always said, this is for the latter days. The Apostle Paul says, don't think it's coming right away. Peter says, the day of the Lord is like 1,000 years. It's you got to be patient. But yeah, it's coming suddenly. Always be ready. Because for any one of us, it can come suddenly. You could die just like that. You need to pursue the Lord now. You need to pursue righteousness and love one another. Grow in grace and in love, improving your character, because there's coming a day of judgment. At the day of judgment, the great and dreadful day of the Lord, And it's always talking about it. Like in every generation, we have to prepare. Why? Because we're all going to get reincarnated into the world many times. And in every life, we've got to prepare for it. So it's kind of like that verse that says that, and Christians use this a lot, not understanding it. It says, broad and spacious is the road leading off into destruction. And many there be upon that broad and spacious road. But narrow is the gate, and few there be that find it, that leads to eternal life. And I remember being told from Jehovah's Witnesses when I was a kid that, well, this must mean then that all the world's going to perish. The Lord hates everybody because broad and spacious is the road to destruction. They're all going to be destroyed, you idiots, you wicked, cruel little filthy people. I'm warning you, you're all gonna die. But me, I'm perfect because I'm a Jehovah's Witness, you know. I go to all the meetings. Right? And I don't let anybody find out my thoughts and my wicked heart, you know, what goes on behind closed doors or when no one's around, how maybe these individuals are throwing tantrums and throwing screwdrivers across the room. Yeah, we do that. People do that. We all done things. We've had nervous breakdowns. We've cried. We've lusted. We've stolen things or lied or whatever. But you see, I'm better than you. They completely misunderstand the Bible when Jesus said, you know, if you look at a woman, with lust, you've already committed adultery with her in her heart. So therefore, Jesus must believe in adultery, that we shouldn't do it. And that if you do, you're going to hell. Because he said right there how serious it is. You shouldn't even think about it. But what he was really saying is, don't you see everybody's thinking about these things? So therefore, the entire world should be going to hell? And what was the purpose of saying that? The same thing he kept saying with just about every breath. You hypocrites. It'd be easier for a camel to get through a needle's eye than it would be for you to enter into the kingdom. And who's he talking to? These religious leaders. Hypocrites. People who don't even realize what they're saying or doing or thinking. They're trying to pretend to be righteous. He says, you, on the outside, you look so wonderful, but inside you're ravenous wolves. You know, you're like whitewashed graves. That's what all of you are. All you religious leaders and even you modern people running around thinking you found some answer and you're going to disprove that the Bible is even reasonable. How could it be the word of deity? You don't realize that. I mean, you don't come right out and say, oh, we don't believe in the Bible. But everything you do, everything you put out there on the internet is just for clicks, disguised as knowledge and information and enlightenment. But it all tends to be serving one purpose, causing us to doubt the Bible and everything we've ever known about our loving Father in heaven that we've been taught as Christians. But in the last, 100 years, people are trying to denigrate the message and cast doubt upon everything. I mean, if all you see is a video like this, and these people that maybe they're Christians, but they're not dispensationalists, right? So they're trying to teach you not to be a dispensationalist. They want you to be what? Somebody who's believes that when Jesus said, this generation will not pass, he must have actually meant it, and therefore the generation's already passed, and Jesus isn't coming. So what are you actually getting across to the world? Not that you found a better way to understand the Bible or a more accurate way, because you didn't really explain anything. You didn't look at those words and tell people what they meant. I just told you that the word doesn't mean generation. You think some of these people would have pointed that out. I know I've told that to Josh many times. He's a preterist. And never has he pointed that out in his videos. He ignores it. And he's hoping you'll ignore it because he doesn't want you to know that what he's telling you is a big fat lie. Jesus did not ever tell his disciples that the world was coming to an end in their generation. And they're twisting the scriptures to their own destruction, the Apostle Peter says. You're casting doubt upon everything without any proof for anything. You're not a scholar. None of you who watch this video can say, oh, I watched this video and it had all this information and science and there was scriptural references and we looked up the words to get the meaning, and it's clear that Jesus said that the world was coming to an end in that generation. Of course, it didn't happen. See, they want you to think that they'll tell you, oh, it happened. Everything Jesus said. So why are you looking for it now, you fool? But if Jesus said that, then who's the fool? Right? They're making Jesus out to be the fool. Because if Jesus said that, the biggest fool might be these preterists who actually think that the world came to an end 2,000 years ago. Then what are we doing? What's going on here? We're living in a world of such utter debauchery that you don't even know we're living in a world of debauchery. You're being poisoned when you go to the store. The air is being polluted. And it's almost as if the scriptures are being fulfilled now. Where it says in Revelation, he's going to come to bring to ruin those ruining the earth at the latter day, the time of the end. Right? Now don't be quickly shaken in your mind or in your spirit if you find a letter as, addressed as though from us, somebody officially from the governing body or the apostles in Utah, right? Or some council of Baptists somewhere. And if they write a letter, but maybe Jim Jones or the guy that thought that the ship was coming, and what was that one group that were all waiting for a spaceship? But, remember Jehovah's Witnesses all went out in the field waiting for the faithful worthies to be brought back, I know. You probably don't know what that means. I don't either. Who cares, right? But they thought Jesus was coming, 1914. And these people are all declaring that, from some letter or, some inspired message saying the world's coming to an end. And we're the mouthpiece of deity. And they're always wrong. But it's funny because the apostles warned us in the latter days there will be false apostles and false prophets and an antichrist. And they'll say, Jesus is here, but he's not. He's in the inner chamber, but don't go out, he says. Many will come saying, I am the Christ, and mislead many. He's over there. He's over here. He's in the inner chamber. He's out in the desert. Go out to meet him. Jesus told you this, but he said, don't believe them. That's not me. That's not what I'm saying to you, that any minute Jesus is coming, or that I'm coming any minute. But you're going to hear about all these lies. But you must wait and be patient and endure unto the end. Endure. Why does the Bible say endure? Like, what, a year or two? No, he meant endure until the end of time. This world's a classroom. Read the Bible in that light. Going all the way back to the prophets, hundreds of years BC, thousands of years, like Abraham and Moses and Noah. Remember that Noah was told that the world was coming to an end 600 years before it even happened. And he preached, right? We got to build an ark and there's a flood coming, and they didn't listen. 600 years. And, all the prophets did this. Think about going all the way back to the prophet Amos and these guys, or Zechariah or something. And they preached that Jerusalem would be destroyed. And it took literally 600 years before that happened, right? And people kept generation coming and generation going, and they didn't throw out the Bible. They understood at that time that it was talking about certain ages and we were living in a world, and they understood the lingo then and knew that it meant that we're in a classroom and we have to watch our lives and not to indulge in vices and keep our hearts pure and learn to love and endure and tell everyone that this is a world where we've got to be very careful because the devil's roaring like a lion seeking to devour someone, and we need to raise our children so that, when they grow up, they'll be mature adults and love one another and literally grow from grace to grace and from glory to glory. And certain ages will come and ages will go. And ages last a long time. Like Peter says, the day of the Lord's like 1,000 years. Nobody ever said that this is the last generation. Oh, what's the end of the world? Even now, the world's not going to come to an end. The Bible says that the earth will never be made to totter. For he established it not simply for nothing, but he established it and created it to be inhabited. Did you know the Bible tells you that? So why does the Bible say the world's coming to it? It does not say that. It never said that. It says that the age will come to the end. And this wicked age is going to be replaced with another age. So Moses was one dispensation, an age. Are we still under the law? No, that age is gone. Yes, there is dispensations. And now we're under the age of grace. But it will also come to a close. Oh no, the Lord will not forgive us after the end of grace. No, there's not going to ever be an end to grace. But the next age will be the age of the kingdom of Christ. And we'll become immortal. And the saints will live in paradise. Because we've gone through these ages. The whole world went through the water, was baptized. Now we're going to go through the fire. And the harvest is the end of the age, not the end of the world. Right? And the harvest is the end of the age, and the angels are the reapers. So, what is an age? That's what Jesus said. That's what the apostles said. We're looking for the end of the age. You think an age is one generation? What kind of a nincompoop are you, Josh? Teaching people that Jesus said that the world was coming to an end. He never did say that. And he never said that just one generation. He said an age. And this word age comes from the original Indo-European language, Sanskrit or whatever, was yuga, aja. And a yuga is a cycle or an age with other cycles and ages within it. So there's a grand age of Brahman, which is 1 billion years, and inside of the age of Brahman, there is the Kali. Now the Kali Yuga lasts 432,000 years. That don't sound like a short time. Jesus very clearly said the end of the age. And what age was he talking about? If you don't know, then shut up and don't teach. If you don't understand what an age is, shut up. Stop teaching, because it says the teachers will be held to a greater account and will be judged more harshly. If you're leading people astray and telling them that the Bible's ridiculous and we should just laugh at what Jesus was saying, why? He's an idiot, that Jesus, right? Why would he be telling people that were living in his day that the world was coming to an end and it didn't happen? Or maybe it's trying to say that Jesus never said those things. Well, whatever they're trying to say Jesus was saying, they obviously don't understand what Jesus was saying, because they never tell you how long an age is. There are various ages within ages, within ages. And the grand age, the one that is the longest that Scripture talks about, is 1.5 trillion years. It's called Nirvana. And then we've got 1 billion years, which is the age of Brahman. And we have the Kali Yuga, and we have other yugas that are much smaller. Now, in the 12 houses, we have 12, we break it into 12 ages. Each of those are 2,000 years. And so when Jesus was on the earth, he said that the age that was beginning then would end, and not the end of the world, but that age would end, and he would establish his eternal kingdom. And it's going along on schedule, friends. It's happening just the way Jesus said it would. Let's read some of the things that Jesus actually did say, other than this one verse that they take out of context that is translated improperly by saying, "This generation shall not pass." Now, we've already seen that means this race. And if that was the only verse we had, you might think, oh, maybe it's a short time. It doesn't say it's going to be short, right? It doesn't say it's going to be short. But we've got the entire New Testament. Has anybody ever read it? Has any of these preterists ever read the New Testament? It sounds like they'd never read it, because take a look at the parables. Look at Matthew 25:14. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country. Now, okay, that doesn't say it's going to be a long time for him to go and come back, but it's certainly implying that. Remember, this is a parable. He's going to a far country. Look at verse 19. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. Well, that doesn't sound like a short time. The Lord's coming soon, right? No, the Lord's coming suddenly. But he's not coming soon. He's going to a far country on a long journey, some of the translations say. Some of the translations say he goes on a journey, a long journey. And they say a long journey, even though the word long's not in there. The word in Greek is he's going far away, or another country or something. So obviously it would be a long ways. And when he goes to this far country, he calls his servants and delivered his goods to them. Now, why would he deliver his goods to them? Because he's not going to be here. He's not going to be anywhere near or around this earth so that he can watch over it. He puts other people in charge. And this is what the Bible means when it says that there's a 1,000-year reign of Christ, which Peter says is a time where we've got to be patient. The kingdom of Christ will not be set up in the sense that it's universal and the lamb will lie down with the wolf and all of that. But we'll be reigning and taking over the world for Jesus. And he gives us authority to reign in his stead. But you'll see some of these parables where some of them are not faithful. And they start ruining the earth. And they start going and apostatizing and going back to the law, eating and drinking with the confirmed drunkards and the gluttons, which is a reference to the old covenant of the law. And they begin to beat their fellow servants because he taught them to love one another. So this is all in the parables. So he goes to the far country, called his servants, delivered his goods, because he's not going to be around. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, and to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, made another 5 talents. Likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants came. After a long time Jesus came back, the Lord of those servants, came and settled accounts with them. This is a parable, a very simple little parable that says that we're in a far country. Jesus is somewhere far away. He ain't here. And we're supposed to be reigning for 1,000 years in his stead. He goes on a long journey, like 1,000 years, Peter says. And when he comes back, he's going to settle the account. In other words, this is obviously a parable about the fact that we're living in a world where we're in a classroom, we're being watched, we're going to be judged on what we do. Okay, because, yeah, it seems like you live in this world and, day after day, you feel like there's no purpose. You lose sight of why we're here. But Jesus is saying, don't do that. Don't lose sight. Understand that I'm watching over everything. This is my world. I love you all. I'll be back. And when I get back, I'm going to, judge you on what you've done. While you're in this mortal world, Peter says it could be 1,000 years. But while you're here in this little classroom, right? Because it's a schoolroom that leads to Christ. Make sure that you use your talents wisely. Love one another. Care for my vineyard. Care for my world. Love your neighbor. You don't know when I'm going to return. Nobody knows the day and the hour. So always be acting as though, tomorrow is the day of judgment. But you don't know when. It could be in your lifetime, or it could be in somebody else's lifetime, or your grandchildren. Basically is what he's saying. And why would he say it that way? Why wouldn't he just tell us it's going to be 2,000 years? Because we're not supposed to know. Because we're here, we're walking by faith, the Bible says, not by sight. It tells you that. We don't know the day and the hour. We don't know when he's going to return. This is a parable. We're only in this carnal, evil, wicked world, living by faith, learning to overcome the wicked world, learning to do good to others even when people do bad to us. And we're all going to be rewarded. Don't you see what these parables are saying? Come on, Josh. So when he does get back, he'll say to some, well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. What is this joy of the Lord? Is this not something that he was saying not just to that generation or those people there? Isn't Jesus saying this not to just the people that lived in his day, but like it says in other places in the Bible, unto the end of the age? I'll be with you unto the end of the age. What is an age? Like we said before, it's not 70 years. An age is much longer. We know from the ancient historical records in the scriptures in Hindu and Egyptian and Babylonian words. These words have always meant the same thing. These ages are long, astrological ages. He goes on a long journey. There'll be finally the time of the end of days, at the end of the ages. And we're all going to be judged on what we do in these ages. And the joy of the Lord is not going to be in this world, you see, because he went away to prepare a place for us. Many of these parables where he's going to marry a bride, but he's got to go to a far country and prepare a place for his bride. And when he comes back, he's going to receive her unto himself. What is this talking about? Josh is always talking about the Bible being taken too literally. Don't take it so literally. Well, I think you're taking it too literal, Josh. He's not literally saying that he's going to a far country and he's building a house and we're all going to go to this, maybe it's Russia, right? He went to the north. He went up there in Siberia or Alaska and he's building a house and he's going to come back on this long journey walking just one generation or 20 years or something. He's coming back. That's a long journey, 20 years. He's built this house for us and we're all going to live in Alaska. That's not what he's saying. You're taking it too literal. The far country is not even on this carnal existence. We're in this carnal existence working with whatever talents we have based on faith. And when he returns, it's talking about the end of the ages, when we've gone through the classroom and we're all around his throne, waving palm branches, saying, Hosanna, Hosanna. Blessed be he who comes in the name of the Lord. And this is so parabolic. They're always talking about how the Bible is spiritual, but then they want to take it so literal and then say, ha, ha, ha. See, it didn't happen, literally. No, that's a parable. What Jesus meant was he's going for an age, 2,000 years. He's going to return at the end of the age. we're going to be incarnated several times or whatever. We're going to have to learn to overcome this carnal nature. And this is a classroom that leads to Christ, and we're all going to be judged by the things that we've done, whether good or evil. And the day of the Lord, or the great judgment, is the last age where we all come back, 8 billion of us. You know, Job says, you'll stand and have thy lot at the end of days. The angel tells Daniel, you'll stand up and receive your lot at the end of days. And Ezekiel says, I want you to preach again unto many nations and tribes and tongues and peoples. Not just in this lifetime, but another time you're going to come back and preach to the world again. And sure enough, John in the book of Revelation is told the same exact words. You're going to preach the gospel to these people, and then you're going to go away and come again at the end of the age. So that right there proves that he's not talking about a 70-year period. Because if John's going to remain until Jesus comes again, his second coming, but Jesus is coming 40 years after he died in 30 AD, in 70 AD, well, John was still alive. So when Ezekiel was told that, it meant, 600 BC, it meant that he'd be reincarnated back on the earth. And remember, the Sephardic Jews and the Islamic people's tradition says that Ezekiel, the son of Buzi, which is in other languages son of Buddha, because the Buddha's father was also a Buddha. But anyway, the tradition says that Ezekiel was Buddha, 600 BC. And he had to come back to the world and preach. And he did as John. But then Jesus says to John, you're going to come again. Just like Elijah was told, if you will receive it, this is he who was to come and is coming. Elijah shall come before the great fear-inspiring day of the Lord. Turn the hearts of fathers back towards sons. So this cannot be one generation. Because a human dies, doesn't come back in the same generation. So, I mean, if you look at all of these parables, everything Jesus said was, yeah, I'm going to go away. The kingdom is not literal or literally a seed or a virgin with a lamp or something. It won't be in this carnal nature of things. The earth's got to go through a transformation. It's got to be transformed. The kingdom of heaven's like a seed you plant in the earth and it grows up into a large tree. Trees live for thousands of years. It takes a long time to grow a tree. Look at the first one, the parable of the wise and foolish virgins. The kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now, 5 of them were wise, 5 of them were foolish. And those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. Obviously, the oil is your righteous nature, your character, your good works. If you don't have good works, you don't love people, your lamp goes out. And then you won't be able to see when the Christ consciousness comes and you recognize that Christ consciousness within you. When the whole race of this world, all the people, are going to advance and one day, the day of judgment will come. The Lord knows how to succor those that he loves. And he disciplines those whom he loves. You think this is literal? The Lord comes down with a paddle and pop, pop, pop? No. All of this is spiritual. And obviously, if you had any brains, you'd know that he's not talking about one little lifetime. The prophets said these very same things 600,000 years, 1,500 years BC. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, the day of the Lord cometh on the clouds of heaven. The day of the Lord comes with thick gloom and darkness, and the clouds and the storms. And Jesus comes with the clouds and the storm. His return is with the the great storm of mankind. It's not a real storm. It's not a physical storm. You know, if you're looking at a parable and you say, oh, this is a beautiful world and here comes this great storm, prepare for it. Well, the great storm that he's talking about is the consequences to all of our actions because nobody listened. And the storm will come. But you didn't prepare. Not in one lifetime, but he's talking about the world. We're advancing from glory to glory, from grace into grace. And after a long time, the Christ consciousness is going to come. And yes, Jesus himself will return. But how do people return? They always come back in their mother's womb. There's no other way to get into this world but through your mother's womb. So it says, the wise took oil in their vessels and their lamps, but while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. What do you think it means that the bridegroom was delayed? Like, oh, yeah, he was supposed to be gone for a year, but he took 10, right? No, it's saying that in this world, it's not over in one lifetime. You might tire out in an entire lifetime. You might get tired and 50 years later think, what's the point of all of this? I'm just striving and striving, but the Lord's not here yet. Because you're not supposed to know when he's coming. You don't know what is really going on. We're living by faith, but make sure you've got oil in your lamps and you're overcoming the world and you're loving your neighbor, because one day there's coming the reason for all of this carnal nature. Don't slumber and sleep in the day of darkness. You know, even today we call it the Dark Ages, right? Why was it called the Dark Ages? Was there really darkness in those days? No, it's spiritual darkness. So they say the bridegroom delayed his coming. Well, that's what the world thinks because they didn't know. I mean, maybe a lot of people did think that Jesus meant he was coming back soon, right? Maybe it was purposely not clear. I mean, Jesus didn't want us to know. That's why they put it in parables, because he wants us to live by faith. So people who weren't sincere and will look for any reason to do evil things will say, well, the Lord's not coming. I'm just going to go back to doing evil. He wants you to do it from your heart. So don't start thinking, oh, the Lord's delayed, and start sleeping. And it says, and at midnight a cry was heard. Behold, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. You think lamps going out is going to stop you from meeting the Lord? No, the lamps that are going out here is your righteous character. You didn't improve your character over your many lifetimes in this carnal nature. You didn't trim the wicks. You didn't fill it with oil. You didn't purchase the oil. You didn't be faithful. You weren't waiting and watching, which is not something like literal waiting and watching, but it's like mentally looking at the signs of the times in the world and the evil that's in the world, and realizing that there's a purpose to all of this, and keeping your wicks trimmed and keeping the oil in there, and overcoming and loving and and using your talents to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick. So they went out to buy, but the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut. Many verses in the Bible talk about this great wedding. It's not just a wedding that happens in some generation 1,000 years ago or something. This is the end of the world ages, when we're all going to graduate at the grand climax of all the ages, the time of the end, the latter days. If you don't prepare while you're in the world, then when you're ready to graduate, you won't graduate. That's what it's saying. So afterwards, the other virgins came and said, Lord, open unto us. But he answered and said, assuredly, I say to you, I do not know you. You know, you did many things in my name. You say, oh, we did powerful works in thy name. But you didn't feed the hungry. You judged everyone harshly. You didn't love your neighbor and forgive them like I told you. So look at verse 13. Watch, therefore, for you do not know the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. Now, if Jesus was really saying that it will be this one generation, 70 years, it happened in 70, then you would have had a pretty good idea when he was coming, wouldn't you? And it's funny because right up to that last year, in the year 67, just before the tribulation that people claim is the Great Tribulation there in 66 AD, before Jerusalem was destroyed in 70, it seems like the Apostle Paul was still writing letters and epistles, and he never said anything about the end coming. But he literally said it will not come until, and endure unto the end, and don't be deceived, and all of this that they kept saying. And that's why Peter said, don't be deceived. A day in the Lord like 1,000 years. It will not be quickly. And it's not slow, but he's patient. So it's very clear. Well, let's go down verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory, and all the nations will be gathered before him. Oh, Dave, this happened in 70 AD. Aren't you aware of all the historical evidence that Jesus came and all the angels with him, and he sat down on his throne and all the nations were gathered before him, and he separated one from another as a shepherd divides the sheep from the goats? That all happened in 70, Dave. And he will set the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, come ye, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the founding of the world. Oh man, this is something, this kingdom that Jesus is going to set up on the earth, it was prepared from the founding of the world. You know what that means? Is that it was prepared, it was Eden, it was paradise. The Lord's already prepared his kingdom. But you have to have the ability to receive it. You have to live in righteousness, love one another, but you're not doing that. You're like a prodigal son. Now, the prodigal son, he thinks he squandered everything, and he's very sorrowful, and he goes and lives with the pigs, but one day he decides he'd go back to the father and say, look, I've squandered everything, I'm sorry, but can I please have a job or something? I'm starving. And the father says, what? You're my son. You're the heir. This is all yours. You can't lose that. I love you. This is a greater parable than just some guy that went to Alaska and is going to be back in 10 years, right? Before 66 AD. But anyone who thinks that Christ sat down on his throne in 70 and all the angels were with him and he separated the sheep from the goats and you know, this is just ridiculous. But he says, the kingdom was prepared from the founding of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me to drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Really? And then the righteous will answer him saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say unto them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. You see, if Jesus was here, would you not go and minister to him and feed him and love him and go everywhere he went and talk to him and care for him? But you see, no, you wouldn't. Because you've got billions of people on this world, and you don't go and get them out of prison and bail them out. You don't love them and feed them and clothe them and take care of them. And if you've done it to them, you've done it to him. It's the same. These are his brothers. The least of my brother. You don't understand. All the children of the world, my brethren, you hypocrites. You went back and you started eating with the drunkards. You know, drinking that Passover wine. Right? And you began to beat your fellow servants and accuse them. You went back to the law. I told you to have grace and you didn't listen. You didn't clothe me. You didn't love me. Love your brother. No matter what you do. If you see somebody hungry, feed them. If you see somebody naked, clothe them. If you see somebody sick, have compassion. Visit them. Heal them if you can. Pray for them. Boy, we should be praying all the time, huh? Well, the Bible says we should pray constantly. And what that means is we have this prayer of faith upon our lips always. We're never in doubt. We're never, dadgummit, I hate this world. I'm sick and I'm dying and I don't know what I can do. No. Those are idle words. And you'll be judged on every one of your idle words. So in verse 41, then he will say unto those on his left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. Now here's where it's mistranslated. Very, very grossly. It says, everlasting fire. And people think that somehow the Lord's going to torture people for eternity in fire. But you see, the word there is that word that they don't translate that I told you about. An age lasting. A age of fire. A period of time that you've got to go through the fire. Now, what does it mean you go through the fire? Well, it means you're purged. It means that you're disciplined. If you don't graduate, then you got to be set back and go through some kind of disciplinary action. Discipline means teaching. So why does it say fire? Because fire burns up the outer, and it turns that chunk of iron ore into precious gems and pure silver. It's a symbol, friends. It's the symbol. The fire is the symbol for being brought into this world and being reincarnated and suffering. And we learn by the things that we suffer. Because remember, Jesus was crucified from the founding of the world. He was descending into this realm. And when he finally overcame the world, he says, I've overcome the world. He began to ascend far above all heavens. And he was transformed from glory into glory. So, this is what the Bible is saying. But it looks like we're approaching an hour here, a little over an hour. So we'll just leave it there. And hopefully that was, something that helped you to get it square, to understand that we've got to understand this New Testament as a whole. And it's very clear that Jesus hasn't arrived and established his kingdom yet, but it's coming very soon. And we know that because the apostles told us what to look for. Jesus told us what to look for. When will be thy coming? We've been looking and we never saw it. We never saw him coming, but we're looking. And now we can say, oh, but Jesus said, when you catch sight of the disgusting thing over there in Palestine, where they're going to sacrifice that red heifer and get rid of the daily sacrifice, which is the blood of Christ and the sacrament, and they're literally going against Christ and going back like a dog to its vomit to this Nasara Noahide laws, more law and order and military and crackdown, and Yeah, the great tribulation's upon us. And the Bible says he'll put it into the hearts of the 10 kings, all the kings of the world, to burn that city of Jerusalem, that mother of the harlots, Jerusalem, the one who's got all the blood of all the martyrs on her hands. He kept sending in prophets, and they kept murdering them, including Jesus. And all the blood of all the martyrs shall be upon Jerusalem, that's spiritually called Babylon, that has the kingdom over the kings of the earth. And this beast, these 10 kings, they're coming up right now. He's putting it into their hearts to burn her with fire. And then we'll see Jesus. And we'll understand, like the sun that arises on the horizon and shines all the way under the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And every eye will see it, and every tongue will confess, and every knee shall bend, including those who pierced him. So I'm going to go ahead and go. Hope you have a wonderful evening. The Lord loves you all. His grace, His love, and His goodness will be with you. Just reach out to Him. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.